Hello guys, welcome to Tech Detonator Show. Our today's episode is a very special episode as there are two guests on the panel. Our first guest is Tinashe, who is a youth entrepreneur and founder of IntuitionPay. His intention to find the IntuitionPay was to help the African citizens transfer their funds fast to the international countries for their children who go and take up their international education in different countries. Our second guest on the panel, Michael Veremu, he is the operations manager at SkipTheDishes and he is also the product and strategy head at IntuitionPay. So he has very huge experience on technical management. So he supervises the rollout of online platform and application of IntuitionPay. So let's not waste more time and go ahead and listen the story from their own self. How would you like to give your background? Where did you get this idea? How you are into this field, and how did you get Intuition Pay?
First of all, thanks, Daniel, for making time to speak to us today. I'm extremely humbled and for the opportunity, and also, to Mike also for taking time out of his busy schedule to have this conversation with us. So, my story started a couple of years ago in 2017 when I was still an international student in Europe. I was an engineer at that time, and I was working closely with other international students to help them integrate into this foreign ecosystem. And part of the challenges that they were facing there was that there was no way of efficiently moving their money from one part of the world to another, despite being able to make their payments on time. This was mostly because of the fragmented nature of the payment infrastructure in the world, and that there was no universal way of actually making the payment. So after realizing that issue, I moved to Canada in 2018 and I tried to see if I could explore the same opportunity in North America as I had already validated it in Europe. And that's when I realized that this was not just an issue on a domestic level, but on an international level. When the pandemic came through, we saw it as an opportunity, and I shared this idea with my other two initial co-founders, Cedric and Tapua, who are unfortunately not able to be on this call with us today. But they are the first people who took the jump with me, and Michael was there closely watching from the stands. And fast forward, we are all together here, and we have officially launched, and we're here to save the world.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Tinashe, for giving us the introduction of how you found out the Intuition Pay. And to be honest, it's very noble right now. I've seen many first-hand struggles myself, and I've seen many people struggling with those kind of situations coming into Canada, being an international student. Like half of the time of the year, that's the main tension they go through. That's the main brain power they use, like how they will arrange their fees and how the inward remittance is one of the main parts, obviously. So, Michael, would you like to give your part how you reached at this level? What was your journey to become mine in Intuition Pay, being the product and strategy head?
Right. No, first off, thanks for taking time to have a chat with myself and Tinashe. I really do appreciate it. But yeah, so for context, I've always known Tinashe for probably give or take maybe 9, 10 years, Tinashe. I don't know, because
Yeah.
we went to the same high school when we were still both back in Zimbabwe. So when he moved to Canada, that's when he reached out. He's like, "Hey, I'm around," and I was like, "Well, this is great." Old friend that I had. So we just started to catch up, and that's when he told me about the idea before he had actually gone into it, and I was like, I think this is a good idea because I was also an international student at that time. So as he mentioned, he then started Intuition with our COO and our CTO, and I've just always kept tabs with him in terms of like let's say how things are going. So one day that's when he's sent me the app, and then he said, "Hey, just by looking at the app at the moment, um, what are your thoughts?" So I got to sit with him and the CTO, just gave them my 2 cents on a few suggestions of what to do, and then I think towards the end of last year, that's when we had an actual serious conversation. I think it was over dinner with Tinashe, and he was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I think we'd like to have you, on board." And I was like, "Yeah, I'd be happy to help. Be curious to know in which capacity I can help." And I think as it stands, I fit very well on the product and strategy side per se. So yeah, that's pretty much the journey that led me to be at Intuition right now.
For context sake, Michael bribed me over dinner. He bought me this delicious steak, and I couldn't say no to it. So just wanted to put it
whatever,
out there.
whatever it takes, whatever it takes.
Perfect, perfect. Very, that's very nice to hear. So that's a great motivation, Michael. Maybe everybody learns how to bribe and get themselves in the good position, but definitely it needs a lot of skill. It's not that easy. You have to have that a certain kind of hand to play at the table.
Strategy.
That's exactly like strategy and skills and how to build strategy. That kind of skills, it's not easily available, I guess, in
Hmm.
today's world. So
Yeah.
let's dive right into your startup. So what it does is it Intuition Pay brings currency from different countries into Canada. Let's start with a case study of the Canada right now. So recently you had announcement that you were live in 3 countries just a week ago or something like that. So right now the market is so volatile in regards to currency. It goes up and down. So there are a lot of struggles when the money is coming from the developing countries into the developed nations, from the third world countries. So how do you guys face this how do you guys found the crack and how to exploit that gap that is there between the remittances? So Tinashe, how would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, first of all, I really want to make sure that everybody gets like a firm understanding of what we actually do. We are not just solving the issue of remittance, right? We are democratizing access to education. You realize that there's so much brain power in different regions of Africa that just do not have access to adequate education. This is just because the financial ecosystems are just not interoperable, right? There is no way for you to pay for your tuition fees to a Canadian university unless you actually study in Canada or you reside in Canada per se. So what we have done here at Intuition is we've opened that chasm and kind of found a way in which someone can now actually be able to get access to first world education without even being in Canada, right? So that is the first thing that we have managed to do. And we wanted to make sure that everybody understands that despite solving the remittance issue, we are helping Africa, which is the youngest population in the world, get educated to these emerging technologies, which are AI and blockchain, and you name it, uh, the list goes on. And how we're dealing with this, like one of our major competitive advantages is that Canada is not an easily accessible country, which means that getting access to the Canadian dollar is actually worse. And how we do it is we have streamlined this payment that people can now use local payment infrastructures to make payments into this Canadian university. I'm from Zimbabwe, and Mike is from Zimbabwe. And I think you're also from Asia, like India, right? Mobile money is a very popular tool in where we come from, but it doesn't exist here. So it's very easy for people to make everyday payments using mobile money and get access to those kind of payment railways. But to make those tuition payments using those railways that are easily available, it's not easy. So what we've done as Intuition is we integrated these local payment infrastructures and those local payment options with the ones that exist here in Canada and created more of like a lock and key model, right? Where we kind of make a system that interoperates between different parts. And the way in which we have done that is we have kind of made use of emerging technologies that have made currency conversion instantaneous, right? So you can collect the currency and the payment in a different currency and convert it in a different currency to a different currency instantly, and thereby being able to leverage this power of technology that has to kind of get to the destination on time. So we have been able to find strategic solutions around that, and hopefully it's going to benefit a lot of children out there and kind of reshape the landscape of how people view education that comes from abroad.
Yeah, I'm a little bit trying to understand how this lock and key model works. So let's elaborate a little bit more for our audience, which is coming from a smaller age group, maybe 15,
Mhm.
16 years. Um, So what you do is you provide the funds. Like if you want to pay from Zimbabwe, you provide the funds to your local bank, local financial institution, and the local financial institution from Canada provides those funds to the your educational institution to make the things faster. Correct?
Yeah. So imagine it like this. I'm going to take you through like an ideal customer journey map, which is something that you may relate to or I will relate to because all international students kind of go through the same journey. So right now, if you want to make a payment, we can use you as a live example, right? If you want to make a payment, you probably need to kind of get your access to your enrollment letter. Then you provide that enrollment letter to your local financial institution with a fee statement. And after that, then they have to process this payment and then allocate the funds that are needed for you to make the payment to your university. After you provide those funds, you need to find a way in which you're going to independently move these funds from this part of India or Zimbabwe to come to Canada, right? And then after it comes to Canada, if it's above $10,000, this money is going to be withheld in a bank up until they can fulfill whether it satisfies all anti-money laundering and compliance issues, right? And after that, then you then have to make the payment into the university. Depending on which part of the world, this process can take can take between 3 to 6 weeks to actually complete. And your primary mandate here as a student is to be here to study and focus on your education. The implications of not being able to make your tuition payment on time means you might delay your graduation, you might kind of get you in trouble with the immigration officers and everything. And it means you're going to have incur an unexpected uh, increase in your cost of living for you to complete your education here because now you have to defer your graduation with maybe a year or something like that because you're not able to make the enrollment deadline on time, right? So this is what we have. These were the key pain points that we saw that all international students across the board were facing on average, and we're trying to solve that. So now how it pretty much works with our system is you download the application, you upload your enrollment letter, do your KYC and give us the identity check, and verify your identity by getting an email and inputting that email verification number into the app. Then when it comes to making the payment, we're going to give you access to our local collection account where you're just going to deposit the funds into that local collection account. After you deposit the funds in the local collection account and we understand that it's in our custody, it's safe with us, right? Then we're going to use a revolving line of credit or a debt financing partner that we would have secured here in Canada to pay in advance for the tuition fees. Then we allow the natural process to happen in the background. So we haven't really changed the way in which the operations of the system work, the mechanisms of the system work. And this is important for financial institutions to realize that we are not here to compete. We are here to collaborate. We are a collaborative tool that is meant to bridge the gap between two worlds that normally don't exist together. And that is where we stand. So we have given the financial institutions what they need, which is access to rapid payment, and we have helped international students here get access to education. And everybody here is in good books.
I must say that is brilliant. That's a brilliant way to put it. Uh, that you are not competing, you are actually collaborating, and I agree that you are trying to collaborate with the institution. But with this collaboration, there are a lot of struggles. So I assume you were mentioning mainly like you have the mainly knowledge about the African continent, that how much time it takes. While I don't have that, I know from India it takes around 1 or 2 days to transfer the funds into your account, or 3 days via the like directly to the your education institution. So directly to your institution it takes probably 3 days. So what how much time it takes in Africa? And so your head start is mainly focused from Africa to Canada, right?
Yeah, so right now Africa is like an empty niche. There isn't actually really like a product like this that exists in that region, despite having companies like Flywire, which I'm sure like from the Indian market you're pretty much familiar with, right? They're actually the ones that probably give you this head start of being able to do it in 2 days, right? So imagine having that same capabilities, but now doing as well. That is pretty much what we're trying to do. And with Flyway, it still takes 2 days or whatever it is that you it takes for the process to happen. We are trying to make sure that this happens in real time. So imagine it as if it was like e-transfer for tuition payments, where you initiate a payment in India, and in a couple of hours it's in your university account. You know, so that is what we're trying to do: shrink the time from hours, from days and weeks to hours and minutes, and eventually in seconds.
That is that is amazing. So, okay, that was about the operational side. Now let's talk about the technological side. So, Michael, how tough is it to bring the this entire product uh, to the stage using your on part of the technical side? What are the struggles and what are the main motivations? How to figure out the brainstorming the idea of bringing this product up in the technical side as well?
I think, um, at least for me, the biggest upside that I've seen that has helped, let's say, our team to build this product is conversations. And what I mean by conversations is, from conversations is where you get to, let's say, root causes, per se. And from root causes is where you actually get to know if the solution you're suggesting is going to work for that problem, right? You don't want to provide medication for, let's say, the wrong thing per se. So our product team, at least, we try as much as we can to pride in, at least I call them the three E's, which is like the education, exposure, and experience, right? The education piece is, if you can be a learner, right? If our product team can be a learner, what I mean by that is learning what the problem is, really understanding what the problem is. And the exposure piece is, let's say, for example, us talking to, let's say, people out there, having those conversations, because just from an exposure piece, that is where, let's say, you then get the experience. And from the exposure piece, it's more or less like, whether it's myself from products, or maybe, let's say, our tech manager, trying to be, let's say, in not the driver's seat, but let's say the passenger seat, per se. So the driver's seat is, let's say, the customers or potential users telling us what's happening out there, letting us know, for example, the pain points they have, and we're just there in the passenger seat just to hear and take those points. So when you have, for example, that triangle of education, exposure, and experience, it then helps us to, let's say, build the product that we have right now and continuously try to do better. And we've tried to use that methodology ever since we made our first MVP, which went out to market a couple months ago, to, let's say, the situation where we're in at the moment. So we always learn. We always try to expose ourselves, because we believe that, you can always better your best. And I think also there's the aspect of talking to people who have been where we are right now. You can leverage information from, let's say, former co-founders that were in the product side, or current people that work, let's say, in the product teams for, let's say, different institutions. And I think I'm very fortunate enough to be exposed to very profound and highly intellect people in product that let us know, or let me know, per se, for example, if maybe my thought process is on track, or if my thought process is slightly off track. And it's stuff like that, which goes back to the first piece, which I mentioned about conversations.
That is nice. So you said about the three is one was education, exposure, and what was the third one?
Experience.
Experience. So
Yeah.
based on all your experience, you have had experience with Skip the Dishes, multiple platforms on the Skip the Dishes, and you were on the operations management side. Uh, how different it is the fintech world from the food delivering market? What is the struggles? What are the current struggles of the fintech world?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. I'd say I haven't really had as many struggles per se, and the reason for that is because we have a very diverse team, and our team has people that have worked in, let's say, for example, different financial institutions or platforms, and I try as much as I can to, let's say, leverage their information. But I think the main struggles really is just knowing the difference in what customers from, let's say, a food delivery platform want, and partners from, let's say, a fintech related platform want, per se, right? So with a food delivery platform, there's the aspect of food, right? The money piece, sure, it's there, like from a reimbursement aspect, or like getting paid for their deliveries. But like from a fintech aspect, this is people's money, right? Money that people have earned, money that people want to get confirmation in real time if the money was sent, if the money was deposited. delivered, and if the university has received its platform. So I think just from a fintech space, you get to do things with more urge, and you get to be extremely extra cautious with whatever it is that we're building.
Okay, that is like a good word. Thank you, Michael, for explaining those differences. Now, let's go more into how you are providing the benefits as a part of Intuition. So, I'll lead this question to Tinashe. So, what is the key difference that is provided by Intuition as compared to other remittance applications there are currently in the world? What is the key difference to your rivals that you provide?
Yeah, I want to like put it in this way. We are building Rome, and Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So by saying that, it's like the foundation of what we are of our long-term vision is what then eventually separates us from what these initial players that are in the remittance space. Of course, we're focusing on being a payment solution right now for tuition payments. But our long-term strategy is really is to become a toolkit for every international student that moves abroad, right? And by toolkit, I mean you move abroad with no awareness of the financial ecosystem you're going to get in. You have no idea what credit score means. You have no idea how to apply for your visa. You have no idea how to apply for your education. But what is the underlining tool at the bottom of that? And that is being able to move money from one part of the world to another. So if we can solve this fundamental piece, which is at the bottom, which is the bottom of like, can we develop an efficient way of moving the money first, right? And after we have developed that efficient way, what other complementary services can we provide value to our ecosystem so that they can be able to be better positioned in when they graduate out of university? I think that is our North Star as a company. For instance, as an international student, you have to balance between working multiple jobs, right, and being in school full time, and also having to learn what credit is, having to learn what uh, tax is, how to file for your taxes is, and trying to have that all to aggregate all that information and learn all that within a short space of time, whilst as well you're trying to really focus on your school, can be extremely daunting and difficult. And this is some of the like services that we are trying to then eventually add into this platform, taking away the headache of moving the funds from these different parts of the world, from one part of the world to another. You get what I mean? So you can still earn in India and know that you can spend it in Canada. Right now, you can't really do that because you know that there's that lag that exists between these ecosystems, right? So if we can connect these platforms first, these worlds that are miles apart first, then it makes it easier for international students to then thrive when they come to this other part of the world. I hope you understand where I'm going. So we're just not a remittance company. We are a tool that every student is going to need to have in their pocket as soon as they land into Canada, as soon as they land into the US, as soon as they land into the UK, as soon as they land into Australia, to then better position themselves for where they will be in the next 4 to 5 years after they graduate university.
Amazing. So, let's get it right. So, what you are trying to imagine as in a longer term, Intuition should be an application. Uh, let's say right now for a payment, the application, the famous application is PayPal. Just like you want Intuition to be the global application just for the exchange of funds between the different countries for every student. So the longer term goal right now it's just based on Canada, correct? So
Yeah,
the longer term goal is to make it global for every country. um, let's say hypothetically, even if a student from US or UK goes to study in Africa, hopefully that day comes soon for the third world countries as well. But for any exchange student that goes from any country, you are trying to make a global benchmark application which can work
absolutely.
either ways.
There you got it.
Amazing.
There you go. So that benchmark would be then be A two that would be like this student that has moved from the US to come and study in Africa knows where to start, right? They don't really have to kind of struggle finding their footing. They can even learn about how the financial world is going to be like in Africa before they even move there. You know what I mean? Same thing, vice versa. Same thing anywhere in the world. And we believe that as long as every country has a bank and as long as there's a university, there should be that connection that should be there. And we are the connectors that are trying to connect all these universities and all these banks that exist, because these are two essential services that eventually form the future, right? So we are trying to make sure that interoperability exists and there isn't those institutions are not distinguished, but we are the people who connect them.
Amazing. But also keeping in mind, uh, this is a financial tech world that you have tapped into. So in the fintech world, there is a lot of trust factors when it comes to the money transferring. Okay, so I'm trying not to use the negative word, but uh, the exchange of hands that takes place, the exchange of money takes place between a lot of hands, and there are a lot of regulations can uh, that can sever the ties between any organization and any bondings that have been created. So how much do you have to take care of this those regulations while making uh, the product, while making the model of your product?
I mean, like we always like try and like lean into the fundamentals of education being an essential right, right? And it's part of the United Nations social development goals that every child deserves access to quality education and quality life and you know good working conditions, right? So those are the three pillars that we really lean into, that we know that as a company, what we are doing is not aiding any anti money laundering or financing any terrorist activities. We are educating the world, right? And if we educate the world, it means that we're going to have a better voice of reason in the next generation, because this generation that we empower right now is the generation that takes over when this generation goes, right? So in as much as there are those ties that can be severed, we are compliant with all anti-money laundering regulations, and we put the necessary framework in place to be able to, safeguard those jurisdictions. But our goal as a company is not to breach anything. Our goal is to propel a positive message, and we do that by, working with all jurisdictions to make sure that we have the proper KYC documentation in place for our clientele. We are not dealing with any, let's say, politically exposed people that can be on different lists that are not supposed to, that are aiding to the negative connotation of the world's populace, right? Or building in the necessary SOC 2 policies that we need to implement into our systems to make sure that we are all compliant. So, as a company, we are trying to build a social, noble platform that is rooted in the core cause of transforming the future of the world into a positive direction, regardless of where you come from. As long as you have the ambition to be in school, as long as your contribution is going to aid the world to become a better place, we are there to bridge that gap for you.
Right. So now let's lead this next question to Michael. While building the product, Michael, obviously right now you're targeting Africa and Canada as a continent and this country. So what uh, what are the problems that you have seen in many applications that provides these kind of services, and have you tried to fill those gaps with your application, with your technology? Have you tried to fix those flaws and upgrade your systems to be better and smoother than other existing systems in this world between these two nations and continent?
Right. So I think good question. By the way, so I think We try as much as we can, and the reason why I keep saying we is because it's a collaborative effort for the product team at Intuition Pay. So we try to, as much as we can, to make use of creativity and intuition. What I mean by that is the way our app is set up right now, a whole lot of creativity came into place. So let's say, for example, the way the app is designed, for instance, right? How can we make a seamless app where if someone logs into the app, they can use it without having a very hard time? In fact, before someone even gets into the app is our onboarding. The way we onboard someone, is it sophisticated or is it not? We're trying to make that seamless. So that's one of the first things that we always ask ourselves to say, can we be as creative as we can? And when it comes to intuition, for example, the reason why I mentioned that is because the creativity and the intuition parts are sort of like, let's say, interlocked. And what I mean by that is we tried as much as we can to ask ourselves to say, what do international students currently want at the moment? What do, let's say, most, for example, fintech apps in Africa look like? And we try to estimate or to basically be creative to say, what is the next step that we'd like to use. So let's say, for example, a good example that I like to use with the designer on my team is an example of Henry Ford, the one who built, let's say, Ford Motors, where I think in there's an article where he says, if I asked customers what they wanted, they would have asked for faster horses, right? But you have to go beyond what the customer wants, and that's what he did, and that's when he created the cars, right? So let's say likewise for us, can we design our platform in a way that is different from many other people? Can our platform provide functionalities that is different from, let's say, other, let's say, fintech apps in Africa or whatever the case is? Not only from the way the app is built, but also, let's say, from a customer usability per se. So whether it's customer service, for example, responding to customers, or whether it's the interface of the app, the way the product is built, can we go beyond, for example, what people want to make it even better? Because, like I said, we always try to better our best with everything that we do.
Again, okay, great. Let's say you're building the application and you have gone past the just not just the customer service, but you have also gotten the smooth experience with the transfer of funds in the application. But the real time data changes a lot. The This question is goes for both. So on operational side, this goes for Tinashe, but on technical side, it's for you, Michael. That right now it's so volatile that currency rates change anytime. So between this volatility, uh, on technical level, Michael, how would Intuition Pay, how it's maintaining the real time data up to date, and w- what do you leverage? Which tool do you leverage to gain that stability in the rates and to provide the trusted rates on the screen on their applications or on their websites? And on operational, Tinashe, how would you uh, what how do you gain the trust of the customers or the students or the parents who are transferring the funds when the volatility is going on in the market, when there are wars going on between certain countries? There is a lot of volatility in the market, the currency rates keep on changing. So how do you plan to maintain uh, a trust and stability amongst your rates and amongst your collaborations and institutions? So let's go ahead with Tinashe. You can lead with the
Yeah. Um,
operation.
Yeah, I think I would to bring a bit of context on how like products are developed in this startup world. There's I want to kind of take you back to this concept called Moore's law. So a couple of years ago, this scientist came up with this idea called Moore's law, and it was really based on like transistors, right? And the first transistor that was built was extremely expensive, right? But the next transistor that was built was half the cost of the first transistor, and the other one was half, and the other one had half, and the other one was half. So what was pretty much saying is was like, as there's more technological advancement, right? The cost of building this product is going to significantly decrease, right? So yes, when we started building this project, the idea of foreign exchange fluctuation was a huge deal that was seemed to be a serious bottleneck in our development, right? But with time, we have realized that there are now integrators in between that actually ensure that exchanges are done in real time, right? So we are always holding on to stable currency. For instance, in this case, as Intuition Pay, we never keep our money in Nigerian naira or in whatever local currency that we take it from. The idea of collecting this is for our user because we are user centric at the center. It's easier for them to be able to pay us in nairas, in Kenyan shillings, in Zimbabwean dollars, as compared to get asking the user to get access to US dollar. So what we do is we get the user to pay us in this local currency. We interconnect it with a payment with an on and off ramp that does the exchange in real time and settles us in a stable currency, which is the US dollar. You get what I mean? So we always maintain a stable currency in our platform. And we always maintain that within a couple hours, this payment should be paid into the universities. So this makes sure that all parties are fulfilled. The university would have received their funds, whilst the parents would have gotten that proof of payments from the local currency that they've made. And to also make sure that we are encompassing our exchange partners in between there, we add a FX hedge in between, such that in the process of the funds moving from when the funds are being received, the volatility can be accounted for by a small percentage margin that we build into our transaction fees to be able to uh, uh, hedge for the exchange fees. I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of context on that. So initially, it was going to be extremely expensive, but right now, if you look at it, they are exchange platforms, and in the next 10 years, with the adoption of blockchain technology, it's going to be more instant to move money, and it's going to be more cheaper. So that's the idea of Moore's law, of like it's significantly going to be cheaper to fulfill the same service because of technological advancement. And we are hedging on that technological principle to kind of take us all the way. The idea is people should know Intuition Pay as the brand that does that for them, that delivers the service. How we deliver the service, we will take care of the back end for you.
Yeah, and
Right.
I think just to add on to, let's say, the customer centric part that Tinashe mentioned, we and like basically the way the product is built right now is we try to we aim to provide like our users with the accurate and up to date information when it comes to, let's say, the exchange rates, because if we're not having like the accurate exchange rates, that doesn't make us compliant per se. And as Tinashe mentioned early on, we are, let's say, compliant with our KYC and, let's say, AML policies. And yeah, we have like there's a bunch of different ways, like, let's say, for example, API integrations with, let's say, whether it's a financial provider or direct connections to financial markets, or like automated data aggregation and monitoring. So we practice a bunch of different things to keep us up to date. And we're in the process where we're trying to, let's say, trim down a bunch of different things that we're trying to make use of, to see which one we can very much leverage. But whilst we're doing that, our customers are always up to date with the current and the accurate exchange rates.
And thank you for the operational sides. Now let's dive into your technical side, Michael. What tool do you rely on to stay up to date with the real-time analytics? I read in one of your articles you use leverage AI and data analytics tool from the modern uh, advancements. But so can you explain a little bit in elaborate and with more details, how do you use those tools and how do you stay up to date in your technology sector?
So I think for this one, I'm not too sure. Just because I know we're recording this, I'm not too sure. Let's say if we want to go like in the extreme detail for, let's say, that specific part, just because, let's say, we're still, let's say, at the build up stage, so we
Agreed.
may have to, let's say,
However much you can release, however much you can say, let's say like from the
mhm,
surface level, however much you can disclose from the surface level. I don't know what the exact name of the tools, obviously,
mhm.
but how much like how does your team stay up to date, keep the up to date real time data, and
Mhm.
You know,
as
I'll
fair as possible. Yeah,
I will
go
help
ahead.
Michael and say something that is less, entangling. Like, so for instance, our lead generation platform right now, we use a company called clay.com. So pretty much it allows us to kind of leverage AI and connect us to real-time users that are looking for our platform, right? So instead of like mass marketing this product to each and every person, it kind of takes the users that are specifically searching for specific words on the internet and connects them with our service, right? So this is one of like the many AI tools that we're using on our in our system to be able to attract the right demographic that we need to be able to service, right? So this is just like one instant of like how we move a product from development to the face of the user, right? By leveraging artificial intelligence in a way. But this is one of the many use cases that AI has played a significant role. Or I can use my favorite tool. Every meeting that I walk into, I always have an AI tool called Fireflies.ai that takes notes for me every single time that I'm in a meeting, right? So instead of hand writing the notes down, this AI tool is writing this notes for me that I can easily then share with the rest of the team or the right department so that they can be equally involved in the development of things, right? And also leveraging AI to connect this a little bit. I don't think Michael will allow me to say much of it, but we're trying to connect students that have the mutually shared academic and personal interest in the background, right? So the best way to do that is, leveraging artificial intelligence to connect people with those similar profiles as well in the back end. So I think that's as far as I can say with that. I'm sitting Michael. I don't know if there's anything else to say to it at all.
No, I think that's good. That's good. Well said.
But yeah, to add the more, Michael, to add to it, my main curiosity is how do you maintain the up to date statistics of the currency fluctuations that go on? Do you how do you use the deployment, and do you go through cloud deployment strategies, or do you go through real time updates? There are multiple strategies in the market. I'm sure you know more than me, but so how do you what is your route of approach to maintain those kind of real time updates as fast as possible and reliable?
Yeah, so I know we for sure leverage or made use of cloud and real time, but like I said, without let's say going too much to it, we're checking to see what works for our platform whilst testing and leveraging different things. Because, like I said, the way our team works or tries to operate is we test things. We don't stick to let's say one thing. We see what works best for our platform. So we're still, let's say, for example, in the midst and process of let's say testing different things, but while still keeping the main goal, as Tinashe mentioned, which is making sure that we are up to date. So, whichever methods that we're leveraging or making use of, they are for sure keeping the customers up to date and ensuring that the right exchange rate is in our app.
Amazing. So now let's deal with the operational side. Let's go more deep into the operational side. um, do you use any physical trust branches in the African countries, Tinashe, or right now it's completely virtual? But going forward, do you think only virtual is going to help, or are you planning to create more industry based structures out there, more infrastructures out there in every country? Or let's start with Africa first. Are you planning to do going in that direction either ways, or no?
Well, I think it's going to be contingent on where we are in terms of like the stage of the company, right? Like, um, our platform is essentially, a neo payment solution, right? Like, it's you only need like one office in a way. And like imagine like PayPal, they only have like an office in California, but they can distribute their products through multiple other channels, right? And we've tried to kind of leverage those relationships that we're building on earlier on, like as part of our customer acquisition strategies. We partner with, let's say, local financial institutions in Africa, and partner with we try and get into partnership with high schools and university recruitment agencies and communities in those spaces, right? So we try to create a footprint in already established institutions, such that these institutions act as our trust proxies, so that when a customer comes and kind of makes a payment, if you're already making a payment within a bank using our platform, it allows you to kind of create that sense of trust for the platform that we'll be using. You get what I'm trying to say? So, in the long run, ideally, it would be a good idea because, of the net positive impact that it will have on those economies. Like, for instance, recently we were issued a full letter of support by the government of Zimbabwe's Ministry of Finance and Economic Development sector because of how our platform is going to have a positive impact on the quality of skilled employees that are going to be generated out of Zimbabwe, right? And these people will need, like, places to work. And if we can be that connector where we'll be like, okay, these people are educated, can we create employment for them? Then for sure, it's definitely our long-term goal, right? We do not just want to uh, externalize resources out of of these countries without then further investing back into them as well in the long run. So absolutely, it's something that is in our radar. Way once we are big enough, we want to be able to build these solutions, and these solutions will be able to build other solutions that cater for these specific markets, right? So Intuition Pay as a whole is trying to is a solution oriented company, right? So we are going to be building solutions catered to different demographics. Right now, we are building for international students that are coming to study abroad, but in the near future, those international students need to reinvest back into these countries that help them get here, and it's just a matter of time before we get there.
Okay. Now, uh, I have some curiosities. So, regarding the investments and how you are going to market your company. So, you have we have recently seen the Manitoba local investment summit, right, where there were 20 companies participating and pitching for the funds. So have you guys thought about getting more funds where you are at currently for the funding, and have you thought more about pitching into different provinces, different countries, for the fundings, or right now just you are raising the funds inside the Canada?
I mean, we're actively raising funds right now. I just wanted to bring it out there in case one of future investors watches this video. We are actively raising funds, and we are not really discriminatory about where we're trying to raise them. The idea is to just always have the right strategic investor, and just getting access to smart money. It's not really just money that we want, but we want the right person who has who shares the right vision and mission that we have for the company, and who's also looking into creating that positive impact into these people, into changing people's lives, right? So we are quite familiar with a couple of VCs and a couple early stage uh, angel groups in Canada and in the US, but we're always exploring, to you know talk to more people out there who can be potential smart investors into our company, and who can definitely see how they can take us to the next level.
And
Great.
just
And
to add
with
on to what
yeah.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, just to add on to what Tinashe mentioned, when it comes to, let's say, the investing and the funding piece, Intuition Pay is not limiting itself to a certain, let's say, geographical structure per se. It's open. The reason why I say it's open is because as long as, let's say, an investor or VC sees the vision, sees what we're trying to do, and is, let's say, aligned with where we're at and where we're trying to go, we are for sure open to it per se, because it then circles back to, let's say, the business model to say our services for Intuition Pay, let's say when we for example, do you get, let's say, a lot of funding, etc. Our services, they're not going to be, for example, for Africa only in the future. It's going to be global, as Tinashe mentioned. So likewise, same notion that we use for, let's say, investing as well, to say if we find or come across an investor who is aligned with what we're doing and believes in the vision, then 100%.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, right now in the early stages of startups, you need a strategic investor more than just the money. Um, but while you pitch, definitely you have to entice them with the earnings or the profits that you guys will be getting or that you guys are mapping now onwards. So, what is the financial earning structure of yours? How do you earn the money? Disclosing the least amount of details. What are your means to earn?
Um, okay, I mean, like we have multiple revenue streams using this platform, right? So I'm gonna just touch on a few that are pretty much obvious. So for instance, we charge a percentage on every transaction that is processed through our platform, right? So we charge an average, is an industry standard, between 9 to 15% of all transactions that are processed through our platform. Another one is, having affiliate networks, right? So partnering with other companies that are in the same ecosystems that deal with international students, and how we can be of value to them by providing, those efficient payment rails. And another one is just to create a subscription model around, the community that we have in the platform as well. So you can see there are multiple revenue earning models that can be created through the platform. But the core basis of, this revenue models is having a good platform itself. So we are hyper focused on that aspect. And to kind of bring context on the size of the market, over the past 3 years, the number of international students in Canada has increased from 650,000 to almost a million right now, right? So this market has increased from being a $22 billion market to almost being, twice the size of that, to a $40 billion market. This is in Canada alone, and you're looking at the US as well, which is 10 times the size of Canada. You're looking at Australia, you're looking at UK, and you're looking at the nature of the business being a service business where people are always going to go to school. My parents went to school. My parents' went to school. My kids are going to go to school. My kids are going to go to school. You know what I mean? So the perpetual aspect of this business model allows you to then look at it and be like, it's more than just about the profit margins, but it's about the number of lives that you're going to impact in the duration of the life cycle of the company. And our goal is to, like, we are going to rest, or not rest, but we are going to take our first breath, when we've impacted a million lives, right? Directly or indirectly, right? Whether it's we are helping them study here, or we're then pouring into like other local education resources that are in these countries for children that come from less privileged opportunities, that do not have access to these high net worth uh, academic opportunities, but they still need access to education. It is our mandate and our responsibility as a company, as part of our corporate social responsibility, to be able to make sure that we educate as many children as possible. And our goal is not measured in the amount of dollars, but in the amount of kids that we imagine. So $1 million to us in profit is translated as 1 million children that we've managed to get to school, whether it's directly or indirectly. That's how we see our model. But the money is always going to be understands the statistics. I think you already said.
Amazing. Like, yeah, I also love this kind of initiative. And as I said in the beginning, it's a very noble initiative that you have brought to the table. Uh,
that.
I hope that this section entices more of the investors, more brilliant and strategic investors to you while making the decisions for the products, for the technical side. So, what is the flow of the decisions take place when you have to push some product, some upgrade to the market?
So if I'm not mistaken, just to confirm, like, how do we come up with making certain decisions? Is that correct?
Yes, yes. What is the flow of decision when you make certain decisions regarding to product on the product, like your side? What is the flow of decision that goes through? How do you collaboratively make decisions within the team, within the internal team? How do you get suggestions from your team below, from your associates? How do you relay that message to your executive level bosses or collaborative colleagues, anybody?
Right, right. I see. So I think first off, the first step is visualization. What I mean by that is because we know and we keep tabs with, let's say, potential users, can we, or I guess in my case, can I visualize how that problem can be fixed by our app and let's say in our app per se. So then what I then do is, for example, like if it's maybe an issue about a feature, right? If I have it in my head, I then have a conversation with my designer to say, hey, hypothetically, if you were to make XYZ or something like blah, 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 what would it look like? And then the designer would just go into Figma, sketch it out, and then we'll talk about what that looks like, right? And then after that, when we do touch up from a design perspective, that's when I take it to our CTO to say, hey, hypothetically, how long do you think it would take to build this, or like, for example, to make a mock of this? And then he gives me a number, and if the number is, let's say, within whatever it is we're doing, that is when I then take it to Tinashe, the CEO, because Tinashe is someone who's very visual. And let's say if you have something to show, right, to say, hey, this is, we're trying to solve X, it's going to look like X in the app, and we'd like to do it, let's say, in this amount of time, right? The reason why I do that or use that method is because going to the designer first, right, the designer can put into drawing whatever it is that was in my mind, right? And then when he puts it into drawing, I take it to the developer, right, to say, hey, can you make this, right? It's hard for a developer to make something that they cannot visualize. And then Tinashe is then the last step, or I guess our COO, it's now, let's say, the last step. But something else that I'd also like to add to this is we are big believers in prototypes. What I mean by prototypes is if we can make like something close to what we're assuming, right? Let's make that prototype. Let's test it internally as a team, and let's see if it works. The reason why I suggest to do something like that is because a prototype will help you to more or less like make a proven hypothesis, right? You want to be sure if what you're building or what you think is going to be built is going to fix whatever issue it is. So hence, that's the aspect where the prototype comes per se. But obviously, when it comes to building the prototype, we look into cost and impact, right? Cost, high, medium, low, impact, high, medium, low, right? So if the impact is high and the cost is low, we have to build that prototype as soon as yesterday, per se, because it's not going to cost us a lot. But if the cost is high and the impact is low, we may want to put that aside. So that is at least like the method that I use to work along with the developers and Tinashe, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, certainly.
Yeah,
So
and
now yeah, go ahead, Tinashe.
I wanted to add something that, like we also have what we call the scooter car analogy, right? It's like where once we want to, when we decide as a team that we are going to build a car, we are very cognizant of the idea that sometimes building a whole car might take too long. So we start off by building a scooter. And after you build a scooter, you add handles to the scooter. And after you add the handles, you add doors to the scooter. And before you know it, it's actually a car. So we do not build, let's say, like features like, okay, we're going to go 100% into a feature completely. We build the ugliest, minimum, most possible viable version of that feature, right? And we, like what Michael was saying, we test it out because we also have to be very cognizant about the amount of resources that we have and being able to build everything as leanly as possible, right? So if it's not worth our time using the ugliest, least like minimal valuable product that we can build, then we disclose it at that point and we close that operation as soon as possible. So yeah, this is something that I just wanted to add on to that as well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on to what Tinashe said to like the whole scooter analogy is that something we also do at Intuition is we ship small but we ship fast. We really practice velocity at shipping things small but very fast. The reason why I say that is because if you ship let's say small things all the time, right? You have a smaller blast radius in terms of, like, let's say, the things you need to fix, or like the issues that you, let's say, succumb per se. But like if you ship slow and you ship big things, right? The blast radius is going to be big, and you're going to have a lot of things that you're going to, let's say, need to, let's say, detangle per se, to figure out where is this problem coming from. So that's why we ship small, but we ship real fast, which is why we usually do a whole lot of things in just 1 week, because we prioritize quality over quantity per se. And the quality piece comes by shipping small things at an insanely fast pace in the team.
Yeah, and also like shout out to like one of our lead designers who's not here, Emeka. He introduced a very important concept that has kind of helped us, and it's called building components, right? So now instead of kind of using so much time to like let's say design an app, we have pre-existing components that are already there into that are already like templates that we use to build our app, right? So now combining that idea of having templates and building as many small as possible and shipping it as quickly as possible, you can have as many updates kind of come through in as quickly as possible and give us that leeway to test those features as quickly as possible as well.
Amazing. So now let's go ahead towards the final thing, that is the tips for our viewers, for our audiences. So Tinashe, on an operational level, or at a founder, as a CEO, there are many struggles that comes through before you start thinking this through. Before you go into execution, there's a lot of brainstorming on your own. You fight your own battles within yourself before you go into this phase of creating a company, obviously. So what are the main tips, 3 to 5 tips you would give to anybody who is young as such as you and is willing to step into and has the desire to step into the startup world?
Um, this this is what I think. Like this words are my own, so take them with a grain of salt or take it in whatever way. But the first thing I'll say is like, you have to be before you step into the startup space, you have to be very realistic about your expectations, right? Building a company is not a get rich overnight situation. It takes around, 7 to 10 years for a company to fully mature, right? So understanding that helps you set your expectations right so that you do not quit too early or too late into the process. And that's why it's advised for you to start as early as possible, as quickly as possible, if it's possible, because it's going to be a very, very long stretch with so many learnings and unlearnings that need to be done in the process, right? That's number one. Number two is the most important thing that you're ever going to do is build the right core in terms of like the first two, three, four initial co-founders that you're going to have. These are going to be the basis of the culture that this team is going to propagate, right? Because with, in the beginning, before a company becomes a company, it's an idea, right? And this idea needs people who evangelize it, but that are echoing with one voice of reason, right? So if these people around you do not share the same values as you, right, the same agreed, the same understanding, right, then it's going to be very difficult for you guys to be able to build anything because this co-founding team, the Michaels, the Tapios, the Cedrics, the people that we have in the initial stage, that's actually what makes the company. It's not the idea or what, because the idea can be scrapped off, right? You can wake up one day and you have lost everything. You can wake up one day and the database is gone. You can wake up one day and the app is crashed. You know what I mean? But having the right people who are like, okay, this thing crashed, but we're going to build it up again, or this database was lost, but we're going to reclaim it again. That is something you really need to be cognizant of, like when you're building the first few hires, because that culture then propels to everybody, right? Number three, building a startup is a hack. It's a growth hack. in terms of the amount of experience and the amount of exposure and the number of rooms, the networks, the quality of the networks that you are going to get in these 7 years are going to supersede what you're going to do probably in 20 years. Because right now you are getting, for instance, get high level meetings with CEOs of established brands, or high level insights from mentors that have already walked the path. These are guys that are already 40 years into their career, right? And I'm still starting, and they are kind of cutting down all the challenges that I have to face because of my unique position as an ambitious um, C-suite executive. You get what I mean? So things I was supposed to learn in 40 years, I've managed to kind of learn them. Not all of them, but I've learned some of them in my early 20s. You get what I mean? So by the time that I get into my 30s, I might have experience of a 60-year-old or whatever it is. Of course, you can't buy time, but there are some things that you can what? You can go by. I could go all day with like these like learnings, but I think those are like, and also just focusing on the why. I think that is the last one. Then maybe we'll let Michael check. Like, why exactly are you doing this? Because uh, without that, uh, then the actual value of doing what you're doing, you might not find it, right? Because yes, it's extremely hard. You know, the amount of rejections that you're going to get uh, is really true. Like, a lot of people are going to call you crazy. A lot of VCs are going to say, you know, this won't work. But that was the story for Airbnb. You know, that was the story for Facebook. That was the story for all these companies that actually became successful, right? So uh, just understanding why you're doing it and what is that intrinsic motivation, like, of why you're doing it. Mark Zuckerberg's idea was, I want to connect the world. I want to connect students at at Harvard University. Then he ended up connecting the rest of the world, right? You know, Brian Chesky just wanted to pay his rent, and you know, ended up helping everybody pay for their rent. I just wanted to go to school, and hopefully I'll end up sending everybody else to school. You know, so that's how we just kind of look at it. Why are you doing what you're doing? And that is kind of what's going to fuel you for the next 10 years for you to build this thing.
More than money, the passion holds the place in the heart of
Yeah,
a founder.
absolutely. Got it right.
Yep. So, Michael, with your experience from Skip the Dishes, like a long experience from Skip the Dishes, probably 3 4 years, and you have been operations manager there. You are a product and strategy head in a fintech startup. If a person is trying to be a technical head on the operational side, what are your tips to build the career into this?
I think I guess it's an interesting question because I'm also, so let's say, in the midst of learning myself. But I think um, just being willing to learn and not take things personal, let's say feedback personal. And what I mean by that is whether it's feedback about, let's say, you as a person, or feedback about the products that you're making. Don't take things too personal. Be willing to learn, right? Education and learning is continuous, right? There's a lot of resources out there that you can leverage to learn, whether it's articles, whether it's videos, whether it's mentors. Just be willing to learn, but also make sure that you learn from whatever mistakes it is you make, right? And I think the second thing is you're going to need to have a lot of mental horsepower. The reason why I say that is you're going to have tough conversations, whether it's with, let's say, your internal team, or with VCs, or with customers, whatever the case may be. Tough conversations are always going to be there, and you need to know how to navigate those tough conversations, how to know when to speak and how to know when to listen. Because I think when it comes to, let's say, breaking into a new industry or learning something, a lot of people listen to speak, they don't listen to understand. So I think actually understanding the meaning behind whatever feedback it is, or understanding the meaning behind whatever it is someone said to you, only from there can you know how to be propelled to the next step, per se. uh, and I think the third thing is testing. probably because I'm just working on the product side at Intuition. So it just comes naturally to me. But be willing to test things and don't get tired of testing things as well. And maybe the reason why I mentioned the testing point is I just finished listening on audiobook to the recent Elon Musk book, the latest one. And in that book, like his engineers, his developers, his product and design team, they were willing to continuously test things, but they would learn from what the previous test would show. So I think just a combination of those three, that be willing to learn, be willing to test things, and just make sure that you have the right mental horsepower, because at the end of the day, don't break as a person, right? You can bend, but don't break as a person. And I think that's something that I've always tried to do, and something that within the Intuition team as a culture, we always try to make sure that we are as strong as we can get, right? You're as strong as the next person who's sitting next to you, or who's working with you, or is sitting across the room from you. So yeah, and I think the other thing as well, just I guess the last piece that Tinashe mentioned, that when you're making a startup, stuff like criticism and praise, both things may come, right? Maybe you're getting praise from the audience that you don't like, and you're getting criticism from the audience that you like, right? At the end of the day, you just have to know what you believe in, what we believe in as a team, and stick to that. Whether it's a matter of, we're young and early getting into the game, that is stuff that we shouldn't take too personal, right? When it comes to a vision or a goal, it has no age limit per se. We've seen young people do insanely crazy things, right? We've seen, for example, the owner of KFC. KFC started to pop off when he was later on in his life, right? So a vision or a goal has no age or time limits per se. So we just have to stick to those fundamentals, and we will see ourselves through.
Perfect. So thank you very much for both of you guys, your input, providing the tips that you guys have. I'm hoping that this will help a lot to our audience, to young audience who are willing to go on operational side, as well as going on to the becoming a founder or a CEO.
Thanks, Daniel. And
If I may ask you a question, I guess, what would you look forward to from like just a product aspect of, like, what would you like our app to do, from at least what you've heard from us today? And apologies, maybe it's just the product in me, but I'm always seeking feedback, whether it's asked for or not. I am always going to seek feedback. So at least from what you've heard today, right? What do you think you're excited about when it comes to what exactly it is we're building at IntuitionPay, so that I can add it on our backlog?
The best thing that I am curious about, and I want to see how that successfully pans out at global level. Firstly, at the Canada level, how it turns out in like a quick couple of hours. I mean, the deadline is today, and I want to pay it right now. And how it is done today securely. How the parent sitting in Africa is trusting Intuition Pay, swiping the funds just like a one thumb, putting up the KYC enrollment, obviously, and swiping a thumb, and the payment is here. Swish. That, I mean, I want to see it live. How that happens so fast. Actually, it's too tough to get it, because it's in imagination. I've never had that seen that fast, except for local funds, right? Locally, we interact them. Even if it's $1,000, it takes few hours. I would see how that is quicker. Like transferring $50,000 is quicker than $1,000 locally. So that is what I'm excited about.
and that's gonna be our North Star.
Welcome to the end, guys. Thank you for watching our entire video. Please like, share our channel and video, and subscribe our channel to be aware of the new videos. So here are our another interesting videos. Please go and watch them. Thank you very much.